Do I look and sound tired? Why, yes, I do. It's because I am. I had a long day working. I was covered in brick earlier because I was drilling into it. Whatever. You guys don't care what I do for a living. I'm going to talk about a highly controversial topic that it's clearly the most controversial and heated thing I've ever spoke about. No, not really, but I'm going to contribute to because I think not all the cases have been made. The dubs versus subs argument. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to say one's better than the other. But I'm going to say, as somebody who is in the dub camp, I'll explain why dubs are important to me. And I'll explain my concerns moving forward. So I'm a dub guy. It's just less of a chore to watch. I can enjoy things. I can pay attention to the animation. Some of you guys, you grew up reading subtitles and you can read lightning fast. I got a friend of mine who's a teacher, man. He's a teacher now, but he always, ever since we've been friends since grade school, and he always read. I mean, he was just pounding pages down, and I had no idea how he was reading as fast as he read. And I found out much later I actually have mild dyslexia, so I have a reading disability. It's not that I can't read things or can't comprehend or anything like that. It's not that bad. I can read a message and usually understand what's going on unless I flip something, which that has happened. That sucks. But my point is that the subtitles, that is an extra layer of work I have to do to try to enjoy the show, and it makes it mentally taxing for me. And I'm sure I'm not the only person, and I'm sure I'm not the only person out there who basically has an undiagnosed reading disability as a they're younger, maybe they're in high school and they're smart enough to get by, but they struggle with English and all these other things because they have a reading disability. And why do they love dubs more than the subs? And maybe they can't articulate it, but it's because you get tired if you have that problem. If you're any kind of dyslexia, mine's mild, but I imagine if you have really bad dyslexia, you don't want to be anywhere near those subtitles. It's just going to make you want to puke when they pop up on the screen. So that is one of the hard reasons I'm a dub person, in the sense of it's almost like I really don't have a choice but to be a dub person, because it's basically the deck is stacked for that to be the way I enjoy watching my shows. There's other things and I'm sure over time, if you watched a lot of Japanese stuff or any foreign language, it's not as bad with French, for example, and part of that is for me it's not as bad in French, and I think just in general the French language is very very similar in terms of expressiveness and the way people deliver lines and stuff to English. We have a lot in common with that, but particularly with Eastern languages, I say something like Japanese, it's harder for the average person, and particularly the person who hasn't heard a lot of it, to train themselves to pick up on subtle emotions, different ways people are saying things that imply different contexts, where you can read the sentence on the subtitle, but there's more context to the way they're saying something, in the way they're feeling it, in the way they're delivering it. And if you hear it and just hear the line on its own, even if you know what it means, it doesn't necessarily translate to really what it means. And sometimes it's inferred later. Now, some people are really great with the language, and they're uber weebs, and they've learned enough Japanese to pick out the subtleties. But for somebody like me, or somebody who's just starting out, and doesn't want to deal with the subs for whatever reason, it's going to be a lot longer and a lot more difficult, but also a lot longer until they can fully appreciate the acting in a Japanese anime as they could the characterization, I should say, that is portrayed through the acting, that they could get much simpler with a well done English dub. I'm not saying all English dubs are good. I mean, we all saw the stuff 4Kids did back in the day. Ugh. But and one of the ways you can now, some people, they say, well, I can tell. And I say, yeah, you think you can tell. You know, the average person who says they can tell, not somebody who's like fluent in Japanese who can actually tell. But watch a movie like I'm trying to think, like Godzilla Final Wars, right? What a cluster! What a ridiculous movie! It's a lot of fun. I mean, but it's insane. And there's a particular scene where it's supposed to take place in New York City. They've got two guys. One of them's clearly French. The other one's clearly, I think the other guy might have been American. And then there's other scenes where, like, there's this guy who's like a wrestler who only speaks English, who plays one of the characters. Their acting is horrific. Their line delivery is horrific. The lines they're saying, I mean, they're cheesy. It's a ridiculous movie. But it's really bad. And then you realize the director, who only speaks Japanese, and maybe he does understand a little bit of English, he thought that was fine. So you can't tell, like, if there was a Japanese show with like really bad voice acting and it wasn't like high squeaky like nonsense where you kind of laugh at it, but like it was like poorly done, you really couldn't tell. The average person cannot tell, and they're gonna miss the. I mean, maybe in some ways that maybe some older ones, maybe that's actually the way to enjoy it, is to watch it with the sub. But you're going to miss the subtleties. I think a lot of people think that they're like they've got, like, you know, otaku powers where they can like watch and listen to Japanese and catch all the nuance. It's like, look, some people can do that, I'm sure, but your average guy, your average person reading subs, they're not going to be able to do that. And I think they're kind of, they should just know that while reading the subs, that is something they are going to be sacrificing. I'm not saying that, you know, you can't still be a sub person, but let's be realistic here. There are things you're not gonna pick up on. There is a price you pay for that. So what's the other one? Okay, third reason I made notes, just because I don't want to drift too far off course like I tend to do. I really love hearing recognizable actors. I've always liked that as when I was as shows that when I was a kid, both in cartoons and in anime and in TV, where you see an actor in one thing and then you see or hear them in something else, and even if they're doing a great job, but like the fact I can tell it's them, I really love that. I don't know why. I'm just one of those people, like, I would go on IMDb and I would just connect all the dots. That fascinated me. That's always been interesting to me. I've always loved that in video games. I was one of those people who, like, Steve Bloom. He's actually his talent's actually gotten better as he's gotten older, and also he's been asked to do different roles. But, like, you know, the Steve Bloom voice, the one a lot of people complain about. I love that I could hear him as, like, random NPCs in different games. Like, I think he was, God, I don't remember, one of the Star Wars games, he was like one of the lead stormtroopers, and it was just like, I would hear him in like all these different things, and that fascinated me. And I thought the same thing about Nolan North and Jennifer Hale. I loved hearing them, even just doing their regular voice, playing different characters. To me, it just was like, it was the same reason why people will go to a playhouse to see the same actors. Like, you can't, or a movie, you know, they want to see something with Kiefer Sutherland in it, right? He sounds the same. He might act completely different, but, like, you really enjoy that actor, and you just enjoy their work for whatever reason. I'm one of those people. I love connecting the dots. Definitely with Funimation early on, especially pulling stuff from ADV. That was how I got into anime, because basically I watched two on demand that I had really liked, and then I started like, well, I don't know what to watch next while I'm getting to the genre, and I just looked and I was like, well, I think it was like Full Metal Panic or whatever it was, and I was like, yeah, the leads were Chris Patton and Lucy Christian. Let's see what else they were in. Okay, I'll watch that. That was how I got into it, and I still feel that way. I really like, I really genuinely do enjoy the talent. Even for people who might not be so nice people, I do enjoy hearing them in different things. I will watch something because that I might not be interested in because there's an actor in it starring who I like. Um, and that list grows, and I feel like I get a richer experience out of it. And if it's a stupid reason or a guilty pleasure to be able to go in and say, oh, I can pick out the VAs, maybe, but that's one of the reasons I really love dubs. I mean, some people with Japanese, sometimes I can when I'm hearing the Japanese, I'm like, yeah, I've heard this person, or you hear the song playing at the end or the beginning, and you're like, wait a minute, is this the same people who did the intro to this? And then you end up being right. So sometimes you can hear it, but that's not that doesn't happen nearly as often as it does when watching in English. I happen to really enjoy that. So for some people, if that it doesn't sell you, that's fine. But if it's something you're looking for, it's going to be way more fun with the dubs. Particularly if you look basically like early 2000s era, like the early 2010s, where the community was big, but it wasn't super huge. So you had a lot of people having to play different roles, and heard it's kind of, if it was a ADV project or a Funimation project, you kind of had like you had like playing cards in front of you, and you kind of knew the casting, how it was going to be, and you were wondering when people were going to show up. Like when somebody who I really like who isn't in the show, or they're like they're usually in a Houston dub, and then they show up in a Dallas show, and like they're showing up for like 2 episodes as a bad guy or something. I love that. I don't know why. It's just that's a lot of fun to me. And it's equally as fun when I can't peg who they are, and I'm like, man, it sounds really good, or I think there's somebody else, and then I look it up, and I'm like, oh my god, that was this person. I never would have guessed that. Like Tia Ballard is a good example, right? She's in a lot of really awesome stuff. But when she first started, she either played, whiny and prissy, or princessy, or kind of high pitched. Like I think the first show she was the lead in. I think I could be wrong with this, was Let's Go Play or Cat Planet Cuties, and she played Eris, and she just was this bundle of cute joy, and it kind of sounded a lot like her normal speaking voice, and very hyper. And then, like, later on, I heard her in stuff, and actually, of course, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is one I haven't really seen, which is Darling in the Franxx, but she does this, like Sankara. Okay, that was another one. She can do this, like, low, it's not really, it's like a total transformation. It's the polar opposite, and you hear it, and now I know that's her, but if you didn't know, or if you didn't think, like if they had just like listed that was another actor who I didn't know, and I'm like, oh, okay. And that range, hearing that, especially when you're like, man, especially when somebody's like being really bad, and then like you can hear it's like another character who you really like in something else who might be like a cute character. I kind of love that. Like that to me adds like an extra layer to the fun. So, I mean, I could talk all day about basically, the VAs and their performances that I like and don't like, and whatnot. Most of the time, I really like them. And you guys know anything about my private project, my graphic novel stuff, where I did an audio component? Those are the people I reached out to, because they just, they were the talent I knew, and we ended up getting some really awesome people who I love. I love all their work. They're great. And to me, that adds that extra layer. So that is the short explanation of basically why I'm a dub guy. Now, one of the things I'm concerned about is the direction the dubs are going. And I got kind of a list here. I'm going to keep it kind of general. There's probably 1,000 different grievances. I'm not going to talk about the streaming services necessarily, or this company bought this company, or these people are doing this. There's a little too much, and some things I know from being friends with people who are in the industry that I can't talk about. And then some things are I just don't know. I would just be waxing ignorant about it, and I can't really contribute anything to the discussion. But I can say the things I've observed. The simuldubs seem to be... This is something actually particularly fun. Mostly I'm going to actually talk about I'm actually mostly probably going to talk about Funimation because I think that's where they're kind of the nexus. They're the biggest. Um, Maybe I don't know. I guess some of the LA places might be bigger, but in terms of me, it's like that's really they're the ones who really got me into it because ADV had like just went basically defunct when I first started watching, and like Funimation had absorbed a bunch of ADV stuff, and I just happened to see the ADV stuff first, and then I found out I was like, oh, this company's gone. So this is over 10 years ago at this point, but that was that was how I got in. So that's why it's kind of I guess that's why I have a personal connection, and when I think anime, that's who I associate with it. I know a lot of you guys have the LA, prefer the LA crews, whatever. It doesn't. I'm just talking for me. Um, I'm very concerned about what the simuldubs are doing. Um, I'm not the only one who feels that there has been a significant quality drop in performances, audio quality, syncing, and particularly writing with the simuldubs. It's not all the time. Sometimes they'll fix things after the fact. Like sometimes like an actor gets sick and they have to fill them in with somebody else. And then when the actual Blu-ray comes out, they've actually they got the real thing. They put the person back in. I think they can do that. There's a number of simuldubs where I think it's actually fine that they did that. Certain shows don't suffer from it nearly as much. But I think they are trying to do too many too often. There's constantly a rotation of simuldubs and projects overlapping each other, and I think that's a completely different culture of how things were worked on or are being worked on with the simuldubs than how they used to be worked on. It used to be you bid on the anime that's already been out or it might be coming out. The Japanese finish with it, they polish it, they fix their animation because when they run stuff, sometimes they make changes before it goes to basically it goes gold, and they are like, okay, well we had to fix this animation problem we had that ran on TV, but now we're going to fix it for the release. So basically, all that stuff was for the most part done, and Funimation would get it. They would get the quality audio, the music, all these other things. They would get the themes. They would get the references. They would have enough time to talk, to essentially ask questions of the other studio, to figure out what context meant and what things and where things, and also they knew where things were going. So you can think like, all right, this character has a complete transformation, and I would cast this person, but I don't know if they're going to do that. So I'm just going to cast them generically because I just don't know. Like you don't get it as diverse talent in casting. You don't get it's like they're operating with not enough information to make the refined quality content they've been making over the last basically 10. I'm going to say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like when things would simmer. When you hear, oh, this is coming to the U.S. And then, they would have the sub version available, but I would never watch the sub version. I would wait till the dub came out, and then I would get to enjoy the full experience because for the reasons I talked about earlier. I think it's okay that they're doing simuldubs, but I think they need to do less of them. And really recognize that anything they take on as a simuldub, there is a very, very, very likely risk that nuance and quality will will basically not achieve where it could achieve because it's being rushed. Even in some cases where there's like newer actors, like they might not they might be in cast because they were available for the super tight schedule of a simuldub, but they may not be acquainted enough yet, and it's not even necessarily an issue of talent, but they may not be ready enough yet to get the kind of performance out of them you need. It used to be basically they would suppose they record a scene. Everything goes fine, and then they do stuff later on, and then they're having people come back for pickup lines and callbacks, and they go, you know what, We want to change the nuance in this scene because we've put things together and we've changed one line or we've changed this or whatnot. Or, maybe it seems like you might have had a cold that week and you were kind of like, nasally or something. It's subtle, but it's there. Can we go back and redo that? And it wouldn't be an issue. And maybe another director comes in and is like, hey, you know what? This is how we got to do this, and I got to get this kind of performance out of you. And you can switch somebody out, or there was an audio engineering issue or something like, man, it was a little tingy. We got to go back and fix that. You had time to go back and fix these issues, especially if there was like a major issue, like oh Jesus, we translated that wrong. You had time to do that. So in some ways you could take more risks, because if the risk didn't work out, you weren't completely doomed to have to not be able to fix something. One of the I don't remember what show this is, and I haven't really been watching the new stuff lately because a lot of it's simuldubs, and I don't want to not enjoy watching something. Plus, I'm busy. But it was something where like the main characters, it was like a happy-go-lucky, cutesy like magic thing or something with like these girls, and then it's like episode 2 or something. It's just 2 or 3. It turns into just like a bloodbath. Like it takes like a hard right turn, the way anime does sometimes. And it was shocking enough content where like the girl who was cast as the lead, she had to step away from it. Like what if it ends up being like, okay, a good example, interspecies reviewers. Do you think that screw up would have happened to Funimation had they not been trying to simuldub it? No. And now not only that, not only does it embarrass them, cost them money, time, and it causes all kinds of issues for them. What it's also going to do is mean you now don't have a chance of getting really a dub of that, because Funimation had to bid on that blind. It wasn't even something that just like came as sometimes the way the dubs work is like it'll come with like a group and they'll say like, okay, you can have this show that we really like, but you have to dub this other one that's like Master of Martial Arts or something, and then it's that's where you get like the trash that I happen to really like the trash because I don't know, I find it really funny, but like you get stuff that's like man, like why would they pay money to do that? It's like, well, usually they're under contract because it's part of getting like a bigger show, like a One Piece or something like that. Like that's part of it. But with the simuldubs, it's like, would they have bid on interspecies reviewers if they knew they couldn't bring it to an English audience? No. They would either, one, another company would have done it, or two, they would have had it, and they would have said, okay, we got to find people who aren't ethically objecting to what this is, and that's how we're going to produce it. But probably they just wouldn't have taken it and would say, you know what, that's a little too close to like the hentai stuff, and we're trying to step back from that. Sony Pictures, for example, Sony Pictures Television, maybe they don't want that in their lineup. That's fine. That's their call. But now they have the ownership of this. They have the rights to it. And they're not dubbing it. And, if someone, was going to enjoy that, who's got my issue, and that's like their kind of thing, now they're now denied that because Funimation tried to do a simuldub. And then they got caught with their pants down. Oh, I guess that's kind of the perfect metaphor at this point. I think that is not a good long-term business strategy. And I think that's not good for the industry, and I don't think that's good for the actors involved. I don't think that's good for the writers who worked hard on it. And I don't think that's good for even Funimation Corporate, because now they have now they own a property that people are pissed off of them about, so they're probably gonna pirate or just boycott. And they're the ones who own it, and it's something now they can't deliver to the people they want. It would be like buying I'm trying to think of like a car parts store, and they bought a mystery box, right? Because they thought they said, well, it's parts, right? and it was a bunch of like marine parts or something they can't sell, right? They have no way to deliver it to the customer, and it just sits there. That doesn't help anybody. That decreases the value of that product, and it makes it it basically now customers who want something, you can't deliver it to them. Would anybody do that? But it's like that's kind of what they're doing with the simuldubs, and I think that's they're already hitting problems, and it's not just the quality, it's stuff like that. So I think they have to organize, slow down, and really think about how they're doing this, and I think for the most part, not take on nearly as many projects as they're taking on at the same time, because it's working out because like a lot of the actors are able to like dub from home and stuff now because they all got because of COVID, so they all basically built home studios and that's working out. That's kind of nice, but it's like if you try to do that for the majority of your projects, because that's going to be your bread and butter, it's not. If you were syndicating, if you were doing that for like a 100-episode show that aired every weekend on Saturday, like it was always that, like the way like cartoons used to be, and really anime used to be, you could probably get away with that. I remember there was a Pokemon episode like every weekday, I think, at like 6:30 on I guess it was WB. Well, when I was a kid. That took some work, and and that's where you get some stuff like the jelly donuts and some other decisions that were not exactly in the best interest of quality. But that had to serve a purpose. Like that was supposed to be put out, and that that did a thing. I feel like that's not something Funimation's ever done, nor are they really equipped to do. They don't have. They're especially like you can't do that with products that are geared towards adults or teenagers. I should say it's a lot harder to do that, and I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them fail because they're doing this new thing. Because everybody's simuldubbing and streaming. It's like me as somebody who prefers the dubs, because the sub people are always going to want the subs, and it doesn't matter what you say. But as someone who prefers the dubs, I would much rather wait, have it fully cooked, have it be to the maximum quality that it can be, within reason. Fly laying on me, and then purchase it, support it, watch it later. That's how it's been my whole life. Where like I see some memes and shows and everybody's talking about this one thing because it's been dubbed, it's in Japan, and sometimes I'll pick up on it, but in general it's like I'm not going to really watch it. Whatever. I went on for 10 minutes about simuldubs, but I think they're hurting the industry, and I've heard from people who I will not mention, but I will say this: actors are well aware of this quality drop because of the simuldubs. And Netflix rushing stuff, it's actually a very similar problem. They've got the same kind of issue where basically there's and it really just has to come with like not having the full content. It would be like getting a book to translate, right? And you don't have the full book; you just have chapter 1. Okay, now translate that and release that, and now chapter 2 comes out, and then you get like. You wouldn't do that with anything else, but for some reason they're trying that with anime. And okay, maybe for some shows it works, but for me, as a person who likes dubs, it doesn't do it for me. It's just I feel it's a quality drop because they think I'm impatient, and I'm not impatient. It's like did I complain that I didn't get the dub until after the sub was out? Like has anyone ever complained about that? But I don't know. Maybe the simuldubs are bringing in more fresh people, like new people. Maybe that's the role of them. But I think because they're trying to do it for so many projects, they're leaving people like me out who I just want a proper baked quality dub. I want I want someone I want the guy who's the lead writer, like, could you imagine if I know some, all right, Steins Gate. I love Steins Gate. I'm in the I think the English dub is magnificent. I'm in that camp. But could you imagine telling the writer is J. Michael Tatum, who's a nice guy, I met him, telling him, okay, Steins Gate. So I know you really fell in love with that show and you worked really hard on it, you did all these things, but would you go back in time and then we're just going to give it to you episode by episode, and you're just gonna have to write it and shoot it out? You think it would have been anything in tone and quality and fun? And also, if he was doing the speed, you think he could have starred in it if he was also writing it and then he had to act in it? That wouldn't have worked. And a show like that relied basically on a study and a breakdown and a real deep love for the content, it would not have had the heart in it as it had when it was finally done. All right, if you don't like it, whatever. But what I'm saying is that for those of us who do enjoy something like that, the fact that the writer J. Michael Tatum had enough time to ingest it and enjoy it and really refine it, and then he was able to put out a really good quality product that was the best it could have been, and it was clever and creative, and it made sense. I mean, think of this, like a story like Steins Gate, like if sometimes you adapt the line and you change the meaning of it just because it seems like it's a throwaway and you're just trying to fit the flaps. But what if you find out now 7 episodes later that the way something was said or the way something was spelled or a line that they said, there's a callback to it, and you find out seven episodes later that that's the case? If you're doing it a traditional dub, you can say, oh, geez, I got to go back to this and fix it. If you're doing a simul dub, you go, oh, well, I'll have to change that to try to, and then, it's like when you try to cover up one lie by lying again, and then it just keeps snowballing. Like, that's the problem you're going to run into. And I think that's not fair to the writers who love to do the adaptation, and I think it's just a disservice to the dub fans. Like, we don't want that. We don't care. We don't want, we don't need everything the second it comes out. Bake it. The dubbing and the writing and the adaptation, that's its own art form. Like we want that. We don't want the adapt this as fast as you can, episode by episode, and pray that you don't have a contradiction coming up. That causes writers to be way too safe in a lot of ways. Like they just, that's kind of funny, or just there isn't any it's too much. It's too much. They shouldn't do that to the writers. They shouldn't do that to the actors. And really, why are they doing it for the audience that doesn't really care about it? For most shows, I think My Hero Academia is basically, I don't know if it's simul dubbed, but it's like turbo dubbed. Like they speed up the rate in which it comes out, and that because they're running it on Toonami, like that at least kind of makes sense. Also, it's kind of hard to with shoujin type shows. It's a little or shonen, whatever what I'm trying to say. Those you get a little more flexibility. Like Dragon Ball Z, like it's kind of hard to. I mean, what are you gonna change? It just kind of it just runs at the speed it runs, and it's the adaptation is actually not as important as the performances and just the total visual silliness that's occurring. Whatever. That's my part 2 of my long tangent on simultubs. The other thing I'm going to say, and this is where things get spicy. Adaptations are suffering from political correctness and basically straying too far from the source material when it's not appropriate. Okay, we know this. Some people, and this is where you get the SJW crowd who comes in defending because they like that the patriarchy is mentioned. Or I'm going to give positive examples of adaptation that actually works and isn't cringy and isn't going to feel way out of date. Um, and then I'm going to give an example of negative, and it's going to be from the same show, and it's because of the fact it was basically the speed in which it was dubbed. And I won't say the writer's name, but it's the same crew everybody gets pissed off at. And I've met some of these people. Some of these people are they're good people, and I think they might be in a bubble. They might not realize like what they're doing. And again, if you're rushing it, it's not, like what are you going to tell them? I'm sorry, should I go back and audit this to take out the political bias? It's shipped, it's gone. Like there's no time for that kind of discussion anyway. The show that's what was it? My Girlfriend is a Gal, I think it is. It starred a lot of different people, and one of the main stars is and I won't name her, but she's a rock rib Trump supporting conservative. She's an actress I really like. So it's not like it's one big monolith cabal and they're out to ruin your anime. It's just that this is a side effect of I think what is this political correctness / adaptations strain. Like it's a side effect of a lot of these things all coming together. Here's an example. My Girlfriend's a Gal. There's the thing where the one guy is the manager, and he was trying to get the the girls who work at the main cafe, the main characters, and they're going to be reading like basically dirty novels and get all embarrassed and squeamish, and then the guys, and that's supposed to please the customers, and they don't want to do it. All right, and the whole point is basically they're being resistant to it, and finally the main guy basically stands up. He's basically just like, look, they don't want to fucking do it. No. And you're supposed to, like, if you watch the sub, it's like, or the subtitled one, it's like, yeah, like he stood up for these girls, what a boss, because they were overwhelmed. But then they changed it to, he calls them, what was it? He calls them SJW cucks or something, and they use the word cuck a couple times in the dub, and it's not appropriate. It's not the way, I should say, it's the way a left-winger thinks the word cuck is used, but it's not the way the word cuck was being used at that time amongst the right. Now, think about the last time you heard somebody called a cuck. Was that 2019? It's already, that meme essentially has already came and went, like that word is not in the nomenclature nearly as much as it was back when that was dubbed. So they use that word a couple times, and you hear it now, you're like, oh, it's cringy. You hear the guy call them SJWs or something, or SJW snowflakes, and it's like, this isn't a context where that would apply. It's just like, you're just like, okay, well, he's an asshole, so therefore he's going to not like SJWs. It's really cringy, and it pissed off a lot of people, and I understand why, because the original material doesn't say that, and it's just a cheap shot to like a good portion of their audience. And then the people in the middle who don't care are just like, ugh, just groaning. I mean, that whole joke, that whole setup, that doesn't hold up. Kind of like the Gamergate reference in Prison School, right? That show was phenomenal. For a simuldub, like some of the performances, these people stood on their heads. But that reference right there, like, you hear it now, and even if you didn't know about the controversy, you just be like, ooh, that's cringy. Like, first of all, the reference didn't make any sense. But you hear that and you're like, I don't think that would have happened had, maybe there not been like kind of a monolith in terms of the writers. But anyway, so that was my negative example. Now, a good example of that guy, that My Girlfriend is a Gal. There's a scene where the one kid he wants to be the manager of the store, and he's just like one of the friend characters, and he's finally gets to take charge of the store, and he's got everybody all the employees are out in like the in the main area, and then he's got their attention. He's standing there, and he goes, "Look, this is going to be the best store, whatever, the best week of sales. I know it, you know it." He's doing like a Donald Trump thing. Now, do I think there should be excessive amounts of Trump references and fucking complaints about Trump because like TDS leaking into my anime? No, but that's not what that was. What that was essentially like it was a adaptation towards of like he's being a character, he's showing bravado. Oh, now he's in charge. It would be like if somebody was doing like a that they were the president of something, and like it's just a little throwaway bit, and they're like, and this was from the '90s, and they were like, talking like Bill Clinton. Like it's a thing you can kind of get away with, and yes, that will date the show, but it'll also date it in an endearing way because it doesn't really take a pot shot at anybody. It's just humor. That would be a good example of basically taking a liberty where you can take a liberty. Because otherwise, what were you going to do with that? Because the original joke wasn't like there was nothing building up to it. That made me laugh when I saw that. So that's an example of essentially what's going on with the adaptations and why there's problems and that's going to ruin it for because you get the sense, and especially when people not so subtly confront the writers on Twitter and people on the internet, you come off kind of, especially on Twitter, you come off as an asshole whether you want to come off as an asshole or not, because when the person reads it and it's a complaint about something or addressing an issue, nobody's going to take it in like a hey soft way, like patting your shoulder. Look, this is how I feel from the heart. They're going to take it like you're being an asshole. Like they're going to read it in the worst tone possible. That's hard to deal with. I still, I've been blocked by people who I've tried to actually contribute to the conversation with, and just because I'm pushing back, they take it as like, as if I'm like being, uppity and shit. And sometimes I'm, guilty of that too, where, I'll read something and I'll take it to mean like a really nasty thing when maybe it's not meant that way. So that's something we probably all can improve on. But basically, when people took to complain about this, some people were obnoxious assholes. Some people were way out of line. But the general, and what happened now is that plus the fact that basically general complaints are now going to be taken in a tone that's, it's not meant in, let's just say. Those people just say, well, okay, well, I guess anime and dubs are not for you because screw you. And I think that's a part, when that attitude pops up, honestly, like that's kind of when I think like corporate's job is to step in and be like, no, you can't do that to fans. You can't do that to customers. That's not, like we will defend you and we will defend your right and we will defend your decisions because ultimately your decisions went through on our watch. But you can't do that to a fan base because it becomes like and then it becomes a pile on because then other people see that this person has this attitude towards their customers, and that pisses off other people who might not know anything, and then there's a dog pile, and it's like a self-perpetuating. It's like a star gaining mass, like just more and more gravity gets sucked in, or should say more and more mass gets sucked in because of the gravity wake, and then as it gets bigger, as it gets more mass, it gets a bigger gravitational pull, and that's kind of the way the internet works, particularly with like something like Twitter. I don't think, I should say, I think some of the Funimation people, even people who I adore, they have a lot to learn in terms of, basically the attitude adjustment they need in the way they treat their customers. And particularly the way they treat conservative customers. They just assume we're out to hurt the industry. And we're not. A lot of us just want to be included because we really have loved this and supported this. And now you're taking it in a direction that's alienating us, and we're having a reaction to that. Now, if you're 14, you might not have the most graceful reaction to that. But that doesn't mean, just because people are assholes on the internet doesn't mean that, the general idea doesn't have a point. You got to self-reflect a little bit, and you can't you can't bitch slap an entire population of your viewers, um, because let's face it, there's a lot of left wing politics in all of our media, and a lot of conservatives have gone basically to anime because, especially young conservatives, it's not even really conservative, but young libertarian types, or say non-leftist types, people who don't like the brainwashing and the SJW stuff. They go to that because Japan doesn't really have much of that, and you get to see stuff. You get to see stories from different perspectives. Not that we're expected to always agree with their perspective, but we want an authentic representation of what this foreign author is telling us, and we get sucked into the world, and it feels like a good escape from the typical politics of everything in the United States is political. You can't buy a chicken sandwich without somebody telling you, oh, it's made with like homophobia or something. It's like, God damn it. We go to anime to avoid that. So when people see the dubs having any kind of political bias in it, or cheap shots, particularly at one side, particularly them, they're going to take a very, very personal reaction to that. And that's going to turn off, that's going to hurt the dubs, because then a number of people, like, I'm still trying to give them a chance, but you can only do that so much, so often to the people you're disparaging before they just walk away. And I don't think some of these writers realize just how many people are don't walk in line with them. In terms of the lead writers, there's a lot of feisty lefties, and there's the person I was referencing earlier. You probably know, and don't harass this person. Like I've met this person a couple times. I really. She's very, very talented. I really like her. I like her performances. She's always been very kind to me. Obviously, the internet battlefield is not her forte, and I think she's sent some damaging messages to essentially the fans. I'm not going to defend that, but I also think that there's probably doing more of what's got the nastiness, even if you're in the right, is probably not the correct. It's not the correct approach to things. But like another one of the guys who's one of the writers, who is another one they complain about. He's really talented. He's great. I've had conversations with him, but he's an open, Antifa communist guy. Like he's just full Antifa. You can see it in his Twitter header. He's fine with Antifa. Like the violence, all that other stuff. It's all good. It's all for the. And it's like, ooh, that's a little scary. And it's like, if you're gonna have somebody like that in charge of essentially a cultural thing, when their whole, one of their things is basically, essentially banning things that are opposition, you got to make sure that, one, you keep that person on a tight leash, because their talent will help you, but not their politics. And then you have to really think about, like, do we have a bubble here in terms of our writers? Like, are they all of like one political persuasion? Like, are they all of like one monolith here? Are they the same social clique? Like, what's going on here? They have to. There are a good amount of conservatives in the anime industry. One I had mentioned earlier. There's a couple. There's a good amount of Christians in the anime industry, believe it or not. So they're all, not everybody's a heathen, I love the heathens. There's a reason Jesus hung with the prostitutes and the tax collectors and all these other people. They're just, I don't know, they're just more fun. They're more genuine. Sometimes, a lot of the time. My point being, they may be in a political echo chamber. And this is a problem we see in society everywhere. It's like the Trump derangement syndrome, where it's like people just believe like all this like insane shit. And it's basically, and then they, not only do they believe crazy stuff, they believe you believe certain things that you definitely don't believe. You think this and this and this, and you want to inject bleach into your brains and eat, eat fish tank cleaner and stuff. Like, Like that's an extreme, but they will. Like it's normally an accusation. It's like, oh well, you're homophobic, or you're a racist, or you believe this, and then you're the whole time you're on the defensive, right? That sucks. And that's this whole echo chamber stuff, and that's a problem with general culture right now. And I think when you don't have when you have a smaller pool of writers who are rushed, you're going to exacerbate that problem. So the adaptations, basically the fact that they're allowing political correctness to seep into it, and they're basically not laying the hammer down when someone basically strays from the adaptation to take a political cheap shot. And that, like, you can get away with that occasionally, but like it's happening really a lot of often where the fans are complaining about it. That should raise a flag. You wouldn't want to be like, hey, oh man, don't insert the MAGA message. Come on, don't be like, I don't want that. Because then this way, right? Suppose that they're doing the opposite. They're putting like pro-Trump messages in their thing, right? In 10 years, when somebody finds that show and they watch that and they run into that, like, even if there's somebody who's, their understanding is, oh, they like Trump or they voted for Trump, right? And they never saw the show and they see that and they're like, ooh, I mean, there's a reason why Christian rock isn't as popular as regular rock, because when you start biasing things to one direction and within it, basically you're using something to push a specific agenda that's only going to appeal to those people, and then particularly when it's something that's like politics, because that's got a shelf life, How many hanging Chad jokes, do you think get slipped in? Like in something like Sergeant Frog, where it's like more of like a sitcom thing, and like it's goofy and it's a product of its time, you can get away with stuff like that. But you wouldn't want to make a joke like that in something that's going to have more of a in 5 years somebody's going to be watching this. Like you don't want to do that, it dates it, and particularly you don't want to do that when you're adapting something that didn't do that. If they reference something, if they're saying something, yeah, go ahead, adapt it and say it, and then we can cringe at it. But it's like, it's in the original Japanese. Like, what do you want? Judge the show for what it is. But don't do that to. Please, I'm begging the writers. Please don't do that to your simuldubs, your anime dubs, that stuff. Don't make me as a lifelong fan or whatever. I've been probably a fan for probably about 15 years. A dedicated fan. Don't make me cringe, and I don't want to. I don't want to feel that like the writers hate me, or they like that's what it starts feeling like. It starts feeling personal, because you're connecting with these characters and you're enjoying this story, and then all of a sudden somebody kicks you in the nuts, and it's like, oh, that's mean, or it's something where you just like the Gamergate thing. You're like, ooh, that's a really dated reference, and it's not even being used correctly. And also, like, I wouldn't, like it would have felt the same if it was, pro Gamergate. You'd see it, you'd be like, that's oof, like I love the Kekistan meme, and that was a big thing like 2 years ago, right? The oppressed ethnic shit posters of Kekistan. I love that. If I had seen that pop up in an anime, I would have cringed. I would have cringed really hard, because one, it would have helped kill the meme, and two, if you're watching that this year and then some Sergeant Frog comes out and goes, in the name of Kekistan I declare, you would be like, oh, that's dated, Jesus, like, ugh, it would be like an Epstein joke or something being thrown into. Yeah, I mean, that might be a funny. That might be a funny gag in terms of like at the moment. But is it gonna are you affecting the longevity and the integrity of the show when you're forcing something in like that the Japanese did not intend? Now it's, and this is where people say it's like it's unethical to change things too much. I think those people, or the purists, are like, yeah, would you like choppy sentences and like no cultural separation between the two? Like, okay, that's fine, but then guess what? Just read the subs, But if there is a point where like you're pushing it too hard. You actually are doing, I would say, an ethical disservice to against the person, the artist's original intent. You don't want to basically crap on that for your own self satisfaction. Because that to me is unethical. Again, it's like translating a book and then just being like, there was a book, minor history lesson, but there was a book that was on God, what was it? Tank warfare, and it was translated into I'm gonna say German or British or whatever. One of the times it was translated, they basically added a part that said that like basically, oh, and the British adapted this. I think it was the British, and they were trying to take credit for armored warfare tactics that the Germans had used by translating a German book and then just adding this preface mentioning this. And it's like that was not intended by the author, like, and that threw off historians for like the longest time, and that had to be like debunked. It's maybe not to that extreme, but it's still like, a piece of art. Like, you wouldn't want to be like, well, I copied it in the, I put the scan on the internet, but I'm going to color adjust it because I don't like the way I don't like the way the artist did something. Or I'm going to add my own little, I'm going to Photoshop this little thing. Wouldn't that be really funny? It's like, you have a certain ethical duty when presenting a work of art, which I'm sorry that anime is, to at least make a good faith effort not to hijack the original author's message to push your own agenda, particularly if it's a political thing. Don't do that. There's exceptions. There's like Ghost Stories, which is amazing if you haven't seen that one. That's an old ADV that was like a really, really terrible kid show, and it was awful. And it was one of those ones they got in a bundle where they said, well, you have to dub it. And the ADV is like, well, this is garbage. Like, what do we do with this? And they said, we don't care what you do with it. Like, change the wording. We don't care. You just have to dub it. And they ended up with Ghost Stories, which is like, particularly the first half of that show. It's a masterpiece. It's some of the funniest. It's really the precursor to like the Abridged series in terms of like a readaptation of the kind of funniness, the inherent funniness there is in kind of like kids anime. Getting off topic, but like there are exceptions to that. Sergeant Frog's another good example, but there is now an issue because particularly the fans are speaking up about it, and it's being ignored as far as we know, because let's just say the people who were doing it pushed back really hard and were really nasty about it. And some of the people dropping accusations were pissy about it too, and some people were just being shitheads just to be shitheads. I mean, let's just face it, like, the internet's not a fun place all the time. But that has a potential to essentially destroy dubs going forward. That's something I'm concerned about. I don't think that fight should be had because I don't think any of this shit should be happening. So, the other thing I'm going to talk about is, and it's a mix, and I'm not going to single out any company in particular because this is something that happens across the board, and it's super spicy, and I'm not going to name any names because it's not fair. They're not always nurturing talent, and they're hiring essentially cheap influencers who are amateurs. Sometimes they get good performances out of them, sometimes not so much, because the influencer will, be able to promote their product and get their, 100,000 followers to do stuff. This is not always the case. I'm not saying every VA who's also a streamer is somebody who's only hired because they're a streamer. In fact, I know that's not the case. I got one in mind particular who I happen to really like. In fact, they're largely likely a streamer because this is one, and I've stepped up the stream because this is one of the ways that now they have decided to hire people. They want to hire you for your clout. They want to hire you for your amount of followers you have on social media, for how active you are, for how attractive you are. That is a quality control nightmare. That is not hiring the best person for the job, for the best product. That's hiring basically, that's Now it becomes a marketing exercise. And occasionally you can get away with that. Occasionally you can say, "Oh, here's our celebrity who's doing this thing." But like, watch something like the hell is the name of that show? They were like racing robot, like stand-up robots, and had like Michelle Rodriguez and was it Haley Joel Osment was the lead? I think. What was it, something GX or what the hell it was? It ran on Toonami for a little bit. It's freaking garbage. Oh my god, it was awful. And they just were like, "Oh, we got these celebrity people." LA does this a lot too, where they like hire, like, if you think about like a video game, like how'd that work out for Call of Duty when they were like, "Yeah, you know who we need to play the bad guy? Kevin Spacey." Sometimes you eat it, you know. They did that for, what was it, Future War. They got oh my god, what the hell's the guy's name? I don't know. They got something, and this is what I mean. Us people who are like fans of this stuff, we just don't care. The celebrity draw is you're appealing to the wrong people. I mean, if you can get Keanu Reeves, fine, but don't get Keanu Reeves just because you can get, just because or like he's not going to let him be part of the experience because it'll improve the product. Not, oh well, he's got a certain amount of social, clout, and he'll do a certain amount of interviews, so let's have this person come in. And it's the same thing with the streamers. And I feel like a lot of these streamers, especially these young streamers who are already struggling because Twitch and YouTube is always looking to screw these people over at any chance they can get. And then they're trying to do acting, and they're trying to be, they're trying to find their way in the world. And then a company approaches them and like, "Oh, well, here you go. We're gonna basically pay you dirt, basically pay you like they often pay voice actors, and then you're basically going to do all this, promotion for us for free." And they go, "Oh man, I want to get early access to the shows so I can talk about them," and it feels really scummy, and that's also a big part of the quality control. And I notice it. I don't like it. But even the people who are, and there are some people who maybe don't care, because especially if you're a fan of that streamer or whatever, you're just be like, "Oh, awesome, they're in stuff. Oh my god, isn't whatever company awesome? Aren't they awesome for doing that and sending them a plushie to show on the stream?" I'm sure there's those people, but there are actors who are struggling, who have worked in the industry for a surprising amount of time, and then they see this happen. And they're like, "Really? Really?" They've been busting their ass. They're more talented than these people. They've been working at it longer. And then the performance is amateurish. They don't really even like it. It's not. It wasn't worth what they were doing. They could have done a much better job. These actors, they notice this. It's not every actor has been. There's been people who have disappeared from the dub lineup. And you kind of wonder, you're like, well, what happened to this person? Did they retire? Did they move on? Some of them were just kind of pushed out because, well, you don't really have a social media presence. Oh, your Twitter account's locked, and we don't feel that you're going to be out there enough, providing enough essentially free marketing to these companies. That's not healthy. That's not good for quality. That doesn't help us as fans, and that certainly doesn't help keeping talent in the pool. There's no loyalty in this business. I mean, some people do move up the chain, and first they're actors, and then they're writers, and then they're doing production, and then they're directing. That's pretty cool, right? But that's a very narrow group. A lot of these people, that they're not, they're paid their $75 an hour, and then they're brought back for something else, depending on how much they talked about it on social media. Oh, how much influence did this person have? Oh, were they like, when they tweeted out, "Oh, I was really glad to be in the show," like, did that get 10,000 retweets, or did it get 4? And this particular problem for like girls, right? I mean, there are some voice actresses who are gorgeous, and there are some voice actresses who are older, or they're just moms, or maybe they're just maybe they're just normal looking people, right? That's pretty awesome that somebody who's normal looking can have like this kind of talent, and they can play whoever the hell they want. It's amazing, right? But now that's been thrown out because it's like, well, we're going to judge your social media presence and your and the number of Instagram followers. It's like some of these poor actors. It's like They finally found something they're good at. They're niche. They're better than anybody else at, and they're doing a quality performance to make a quality product. And then you just said, "Oh yeah, remember that the Hollywood industry you couldn't get into because they're scummy? We're going to adapt some of their tactics." I find that incredibly strange and incredibly weird and awful, particularly because the next part I'm going to talk about is we want to hire people for identity politics reasons. And I saw a lot of this, particularly right after the BLM protests started and the George Floyd stuff. And I had seen this before, and it happened to resurface there again. The hot cultural issue is trans rights. So please submit your application if you're trans. Other people, don't submit. You send it to my personal thing. Everybody else, you get in the normal line. These people get the shortcut. I'm looking to expand the roster to make sure I put more diverse people in my diversity of race, gender, and whatever identity you wanna have in the checkbox. Has never once made a great anime the great anime it is. It's never once made a great anything the great it is. What it is, it's basically affirmative action. And now what you've done is that now that person who's particularly okay, so voice acting industry, it was largely for a while. It was basically I won't say it was white dominated because it really wasn't white dominated. There's plenty of Hispanics and Asians in it. But there wasn't really all that many black people. There was, there were some people like Greg Eagles, amazing. Phil Lamar is like the one everybody brings up because he's just like unbelievably talented. And it just wasn't something. It just for whatever reason there didn't happen to be, and it didn't affect whether. I mean, was there anybody who watched Samurai Jack and was like, I can't watch this? The lead guy is a black guy and not not a Japanese guy. Like there's never been anybody in good faith who's ever watched any kind of entertainment or received a product, like your waiter, is the wrong race, and then you're gonna say, well, I can't enjoy this food now because I had Mexican cuisine delivered to me by an Italian guy. Are you kidding me? That doesn't help. It's the same. We saw basically the Simpsons self-destructing where they just first they got rid of Apu and then they got rid of anybody who does a voice who doesn't match the race. Although apparently yellow is fine. You can be, the white people can only voice the yellow people, and then it's whatever. It's ridiculous, right? And that show was already doing a nosedive for various reasons, and now it's effectively dead. And I'm seeing that leak into the anime. I'm seeing casting directors and people say, oh, now's the time to, raise up those voices of color in terms of hiring them to do things when they'd normally have to compete with everybody else. That's a problem because now if there's suppose there was a black actor or actress who gets hired this year and they come out in an anime and they blow it out of the park and they're freaking amazing. There's plenty of people like that. Gosh, of course, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of oh my god, what's her name? It's not Grey. It's not Grey. It's Cree Summer. There's a good example. Okay, good example, right? She's unbelievable, right? So the next Cree Summer comes out, or Phil Lamar, and they do a dub, and they're freaking amazing. Now someone can say, you only got that part because you were the right color. I think this person was more talented. Disprove it. You can't. Now there's a problem because now you've saddled that person with you're an affirmative action hire. Now that may feel good to the person who's just trying to get their foot in the door and they're like, I don't care how I get into the industry, I want to get into the industry. But you don't think that's going to have long-term negative effects in terms of relationship between the fans and the actors? Or just in general, because that's the best case scenario. Because the normal scenario is you end up hiring people who are, not fit for the job either mentally or talent wise, because you just got to get those, those quota check boxes made. You end up making it more expensive and more difficult to create a good product. You're exacerbating the issues that the industry already has, and it's disrespectful to minorities. It's disrespectful to people who have worked hard, who are minorities, who have tried to work hard to get into the industry, because now you're saying, oh, well, I'm only letting you in now because of your skin color. And on top of that, I'm trying to say that I'm not a racist, because it wasn't that I was keeping you out because of your skin color, but now I'm lifting you up because of your skin color. So now that person, in the back of their head, no matter what, they're like, and the accusation's going to stand. It's going to be, you're only where you are because of your race. And there's no counter argument to that, because you've robbed somebody of the actual achievement of what they're doing. Of being talented enough to be in the industry. You've now robbed them of that, because you've said, well, you match the demographic we wanted to raise up. Like it's a charity case. That is unbelievably damaging to the industry. It's damaging to the actors, and I imagine it's going to really upset. I couldn't imagine during this whole BLM stuff, if you're like a white male VA and you're working your damnedest to get into the industry, and you're doing stuff, and you're doing acting, and already the theater companies are kicking you out because you're a straight white man, and already the Hollywood stuff, you don't want to be involved with that because that's corrupt and all kinds of stuff's going on. So you're like, okay, this is an industry, I got a passion for it, I'm working at it, and then they say, hey, we're going to elevate black people now, and you just go, oh my God, I've been working at this for how long, and now they don't even. Now there's a problem with my race and gender in this industry. How does that make people feel? That's not healthy. That's certainly not what that's not what Martin Luther King would have wanted. It's not what anybody who sits down and thinks about it. It's not what they want. And I know some of these people are passionate and they're very anti-racist, and they got BLM in their Twitter profiles and also and in their Twitter names. By doing that kind of stuff, you are hurting the industry, you are offending the fans, and you are hurting both the actors who you're overlooking because of their race and the actors you're elevating under false pretenses who are of the minority or are of the race you're trying to elevate, because now they're never going to be able to prove they earned it. And if you think that's not going to have a major negative effect on their attitude and psyche in the long term, or the fact that, or some fans will just say, all right, this person, yeah, maybe they're talented, but they're an affirmative action hire, so I'm just not going to support it. I'm not going to watch the show they're in. Some people will do that. So now you've robbed them of lifelong fans, Nobody hired Phil Lamar or Greg Eggles or all these other people because of their race. They were hired because they were the right people for the job, and they were unbelievably talented. That's why they were hired. And if you stick to that, you'll get more Phil Lamars and more Cree Summers and more Greg Eggles and more oh my God, guy plays swordsman in I'm not good with names, but you'll get more people of quality. You then if you stick to what you're how it's supposed to be. I get it. Sometimes, like Chris Sabat voices a lot of black dudes. Do we want to cancel him? Do we say, oh, you don't get to play Garter because we think we found a black guy who was available? That's insane. That's insane. He was the right guy to cast for that. He was funny as hell. It was. I wouldn't want to change that casting, like because he's white. You'd be kidding me. It's like you'd have to change everybody to be. That means that just an Asian of marginal talent could just apply and say, well, these characters are Japanese, so scooch out of the way, Hispanic voice actress or whatever. Like, don't go down that road, because if the industry goes down that road where they're doing essentially affirmative action hires for difficult talent-based positions, they're going to poison the well, and they're going to cause the whole thing to come crashing down. It's going to be like, when you see a 70s cartoon that's dubbed in and it's like a joke. That's what it's going to turn into. Because you're going to scare away the good talent, and you're going to, more importantly, push your customers away. We don't like that. We want the best people, and we don't care what color they are. Period. That's how we feel. And that is something we respond to. Because we hear a voice actor, and most people are not going to go out of their way to even look up what color they are, or what they look like, or anything. Like, they don't care. I happen to just look up because I'm kind of a fan in that sense, where like I love like to connect the dots with the voice actors. But not once has it ever like occurred to me that like I was trying to remember, like Vamp, right? When I found out Vamp from Metal Gear Solid 2 was Phil Lamar, it wasn't like, well, this would be great, but was a Romanian available to do the part? It was, oh shit, I love Phil Lamar. He's that guy? What else is he in? That's the reaction. So don't go down this path. Game designers, casters, anime dubbers, whatever your industry is, particularly in entertainment, don't go down that path. You will destroy what you're trying to save. You think that the diversity is going to be good because diversity for the sake of diversity is good. No. You need talent. You need diversity of talent. That's what you need. You need quality. If there's only one Asian guy who's good enough to make it, then there's only one Asian guy. And if there's only one white guy who's good enough to make it, there's only one white guy. But you just pick who's the best. We never thought that you don't have to prove to us that you're not discriminating against black people because you don't happen to cast a lot of them. We look into it. We're not stupid. We go, okay, well, it's parts of it's a very yuppie group. A lot of these people are from theater. It was in northern Texas areas, Houston and stuff. Like, there's not a huge black population in terms of the people hiring and we're not going to be like, judging you like 13% of the country's black and 13% of their staff, I think their Hispanics are overrepresented. That has never crossed a fan's mind. Someone who's actually a fan, that has never crossed their mind. It's crossed identitarians' minds who want to, enforce their dogma of diversity. But the people who matter, it's never crossed our mind. We don't care what the race is. If I had watched Full Metal Panic and I looked it up and it was dubbed by 15 black dudes, even the women, I would have been like, holy crap. That would it have made the show any worse? Let's just say, assuming performances are the same, everything's the same. It was the same show, and then you find out like they're all black dudes. Would that have changed the quality of the show? No, it wouldn't have. But if you said, well, we got to find, all right, so Kurtz, he's a German guy. Okay, we'll have that be a white guy. But Sasuke, he's half Afghan, so we got to find somebody who's Middle Eastern to play Sasuke. And Kaname, she's Japanese, but she looks kind of foreign because she's got the blue hair. So let's find somebody who's mixed for her. And then, Kyoko. I don't, you can't have a name like Kyoko and not have somebody who's Japanese. And so on, and so on, and so on. Or Melissa Mal is half Chinese, half American. Oh, better find somebody who's mixed race for that. Like, no, that doesn't help anybody. That makes a crappier product. It pisses off people. It hurts the actors. It hurts the fans. Don't do that. Do not do that. And whoever's in your ear telling you it's some sort of justice to be singling out people who are of different diversities or whatever, to go find them and elevate them, that person is going to basically, they're not looking out for your well-being. They're looking out to signal how good they think they are, and they think you should signal how good you are too. You want to signal to the fans how good you are? put out a quality product and hire the best person for the job. Also, don't be, dicks to people on Twitter over politics. Like, just don't do that. Like, fans, no, don't do that. Don't do that to them. Don't fight with fans over politics. Don't. And if somebody questions you, like someone who blocked me recently, not that recently, but it was somebody who was like absolutely fucking melting down. They you're gonna be miserable, and fans are going to think less of you if you have these types of like negative screaming conversations with people who maybe like don't want to be called Nazis. Maybe if you call half your fan base Nazis, there might be some people who push back. Or maybe if you express an absolutism with your view, and then someone disagrees with you, maybe they're not the devil. There's a lot to learn, guys. I'm not, I'm not in the industry. Yes, I've hired people. Yes, I've worked, and yes, I know a lot of people in the industry. I'm close friends with some people in the industry. But I'm telling you, as primarily as a fan, that don't go down the affirmative action hiring, the crap, the virtue signaling, the black boxes, and the text. Leave that at the door. There's going to be people who scream, and they will demand you signal to them that you are not a racist or whatever it is. Because if you don't signal you're not a racist, then how are they going to know you're not a racist? That you must be a racist, right? Or a transphobe or whatever. Name the thing, right? I would, if Christians were doing that to you, I would say, no, don't. Sorry, you're not putting out enough Christian anime. Jesus' message is just not in some of these shows, and you guys should at least, if you're going to dub things that are like High School DxD, which is really, celebrates the devil, you should at least, dub, at least half a season of a Christian cartoon from China, as they would probably say. No. Would you listen to that person? Would you say, I'm sorry, you're not hiring enough devout Catholics? Clearly, because would you listen to that, somebody who told you that? No, you wouldn't. You would tell them to piss off. Well, that's what you got to tell people, even if they're politically aligned with you. If they tell you, got to do this for political identitarian whatever reason. No. You kick that person aside. You say, okay, yeah, thanks for your suggestion. I'm going to hire the best person for the job. And I don't care what their race is. I don't care if they're all straight white males. I don't care if he was a straight white male yesterday and then he transitioned. Can he do the job? Is he going to show up on time and be sane and also, deliver the voice performance we need? Yes? Okay. Pencil him in. That's how you got to do it. It's I'd like to say, it's not that hard, but it's a whole mentality, because a lot of these people in the industry, they're just surrounded by everybody who's in the same, they're on the same political page. They're on the same cabal, where it's like this kind of stuff is okay because it shows they care. It shows they're inclusive. It shows they love minorities and diversity and all this other stuff. And it's like, that may be how you show it to those people, but that's not how you show it to the fans. That's how you show them you're essentially tokenizing them. That's how you're showing them you don't respect the fans. And guess what? If the fan is gay, straight, black, white, or whatever, you show them you don't respect them by doing something like that, by saying like, this is for our black fans. We hired a black person. Look at us. Look how awesome we are. You think the average black DBZ person cares whether the guy who voices Goku is black or not? Or Piccolo in that case, right? Do you think they care? Go ask them. Ask them. Don't ask a think tank. Don't go find some person with like a feminist podcast and ask what they think. You know what they're gonna say. They're gonna lead you down this path. But I mean, really, go to anime convention. Find like the group of black dudes from Philly who are dressed in Naruto and they're really into it, and say, hey, does it bother you that Naruto is voiced by like kind of an overweight white woman? Like is that, are you less of a fan because of that? Would you prefer we found a person of color to voice Naruto? Go ahead, ask them. They're gonna look at you like you've got 7 heads, and they're gonna say you're kidding me, right? Like I give a shit. They don't care. Don't you'll insult them, and you insult your non-minority fans, your straight white male fans, who, let's admit, there's a lot of them. You insult them by saying essentially that, well, you're kind of a problem, and there's too many of you, so you want to remedy that. So you insult those people, and then you tokenize the other people, who just, they've always thought of themselves as anime fans. They've never thought of themselves as black anime fans, right? Like, we're in the same boat. Do we like whatever it is, like whatever the show is, like Full Metal Panic? Like, I have more in common with somebody who's, black and female, who loves Full Metal Panic, and what we share in common is that we love Full Metal Panic. Not that, not that I'm a white Full Metal Panic fan and she's a black Full Metal Panic fan, and that's, never the two shall meet. Like I need to elevate her voice or something, or she has to, she feels that, like, I'm getting the better deal because Chris Patton is white, who's the lead guy. Like, we never once have I had a discussion with somebody who was, a person of color, about an anime that involved the race of the actors. Never. That has never come up. Sometimes we'll be surprised about who voices who, and the quality and all these other things. We'll be like, oh, did you know this person was doing this voice? No, I didn't know that. What else were they in? Or, I feel like I've heard this person before. Oh, well, they were this person in this. That's where the conversation goes. It's never once been like, well, like, never once has they say, like, I would have really enjoyed this show. I would have preferred if more people of color had been, voicing the Japanese characters with massive tits. I would have preferred that. Like, that's never, it doesn't cross our mind. So that is my, I was going to go into some other stuff about the industry. I'm going to leave that because, one, I've talked too long. I think I made my point. And two, I want to leave this on, essentially. I know it seems like it's a negative note, but it's a positive note, because it's a solution to a problem that they're creating, that I can tell them to just, or it's just say, we as fans can tell them, just don't do that. I mean, how often do you have a problem where the solution is just stop doing that? There isn't, that's not something where you got to look in your heart and change. It's not like you got to learn how to interact on Twitter, or you got to, change your heart so that you're actually nicer to your fans who aren't, politically aligned with you. It's not even that. It's just a matter of just, don't do this stupid shit. For God's sake, don't do this. It's a simple fix, and it'll be a step in the right direction. So, whatever. I hope this doesn't get me in trouble. I absolutely adore a lot of VAs. I love the talent. I love to hear their voices. I've met many of them in person, and 99% are just swell. They're fine. They're normal people. I've gotten tongue-tied before trying to talk to them. I think I've only had that happen like twice, but in general, they're very, very receptive, very nice people. Internet personalities aside, people are not like in person usually what they're like on Twitter. Just don't, if you're a fan and you're on the right, honest to God, I would recommend, like, don't even go down that rabbit hole of following them. Because there's a number of people I just had to stop following. I had to stop following Steve Bloom because he was getting, ridiculous. Like, I was getting upset with the stuff he was saying because it was directed at me and people like me. So I just was like, you know what? Like, if he's gonna piss me off, I'm just gonna not follow. I'm not gonna look at what he's doing. And that's actually, I think, helped in terms of my opinion of him and my opinion of the industry. And now I can hear him and be like, okay, well, what's he up to? What's he doing? What's he appearing in? And not have in the back of my head, oh yeah, he hates me. He doesn't know me, but he hates me because of who I am. Um, that I think maybe celebrities, and let's just say people who have a connection in the way actors have a connection to fans who enjoy their content. They should probably take note that um, you can really easily disillusion fans by drawing lines in the sand over crap like politics, particular politics, because that's not why they like you, and you're telling them you don't like them because of something unrelated. And that's I know it's tough. I'm not a good example of somebody who keeps their politics to themselves. I'm not a good example of that. And I'm not saying that it's the solution for everybody, but for God's sake, please just know, not everybody who's being a trolling asshole, that doesn't represent the entire side of the debate. That doesn't represent half your fans. So you don't have to resent them. And we will support you if we like your performances. Just even if you're a weirdo who like does like witchcraft and votes Green Party and does like all this weird shit. Like, we don't care that much about that. But we do care when you go out of your way to say you hate us, you hate our country, you hate our president, or something like that. Or you hate. I should say you hate us for supporting the president who you want in you believe some crazy Russian shit about. Like, you're now walking a line, and you're that's not good. We don't care so much about that. We care that you voice a character we really like, and we like you for that. And that's where we're holding you up, and that's why we're following and trying to get to know more about you, see what else you're in. And you kind of like, I'm not saying you got to be personal friends with everybody, because that's because first of all, there's too many people. Second of all, that's how you get really weird people. But just keep in mind, like, when you direct your hatred towards one idea, one person, that there's casualties, and the bigger you are, the more popular you are, the more casualties there are. Don't and then and that feeds into the tribalism, because then when you find out somebody is somebody does like you, and now they're clung to that person, they're defensive of that person. There's a really good example of that with a crazy thing that has that went down, I guess, last year. It involved some lawsuits and some accusations and some other the the big fight that I'm dancing around talking about. But you gotta remember that this is it's not a unique thing to this industry. It's not that people on one side or the other are particular dickheads necessarily. This is human nature, and this is how it's going to come off to people. We want to like you. We want to like you. And at least don't tell us that you don't like us. That's all. That's all we really want. I should say that's all the people usually want. Some people will never be satisfied. Don't worry about that. Just worry, and just know in general, like, there's a connection that your fans, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum or the autism spectrum, regardless, there's a connection they have with you because they enjoyed your performance, they enjoyed your character, and there's a connection there. And just tread a little lighter, be a little more compassionate. I'm an author, and I've never ever disparaged a fan who likes our book because of their politics or whatever. It just doesn't, I know it's like people who like the things I create may not necessarily be in line with they're not me. You know, like everybody is different. And if the only people who are allowed to enjoy what I create are people who are me, or like me in some kind of way, then I'm not creating for the right reasons. And when you give a performance as an actor, think about that. You know, like you're putting something out in the world, and you're saying you can enjoy it, but you shouldn't, because I don't, I'm going to say things to make it hard for you to listen to my voice. It's kind of like Stephen King, how he basically has been bleeding fans over the last 3 years, because he went super outspoken, left wing, anti Trump, and I wasn't really a big fan of his books, but like he went full into like basically like, I'm writing this to mock you magatards, basically, right? It's people, like he's bleeding. He's bleeding fans. Like, is that really right to do that? To say like, somebody whose favorite book series was like It or some shit, and then being like, well, I know you enjoyed that, but you're not nearly sophisticated enough to enjoy my work going forward. Like, you must not have gotten it. Because you weren't of a certain political persuasion, or you're not worthy of it. It's like, you're creating. It's you're a chef. You make something delicious, and if the guy who compliments you and says, "I really liked it," is a communist or a capitalist, it doesn't matter. You've created something. You know, appreciate that someone likes your stuff. Appreciate that. That's invaluable. And maybe just because I'm like a small creator, like that means a lot to me. When someone says they like something I made, it's like that's a really big deal before. Like I very rarely get that kind of satisfaction. And maybe as you kind of move up the ladder, if you're a voice actor who's been in the industry for so long, it's like, well, I voice X so and so. Everybody likes that show, who's in there. And if you don't, screw you. It's like that's not. Someone makes a personal connection when they consume your art. Don't abuse that. That's all I ask. Be nicer. Everybody. And the fans can learn this too, right? But I kind of feel like it's like, if you want to pretend to be the one with the authority and the adult in the room, you got to take the responsibility of essentially just being a little kinder than the other people are being. Just be a little more disciplined than the people you're complaining about. Like, I get it. It's tough. Lots of people saying bullshit to you can really, ruin your day, essentially, as somebody who's on social media. I've been dogpiled before. It doesn't feel good, and I'm just a nobody, I mean, I imagine if you're any kind of a, minor celebrity or an actor, VA or something, you got a lot more exposure. You're going to attract more and more and more of that kind of negative attention. But just know, in your counter battery fire, you're going to hit a lot more people that really, really don't deserve it. People who genuinely, maybe they do have a complaint, but they genuinely want to like you, and they genuinely enjoy what you've created. Be charitable. Be cautious. Be patient. It's as somebody, I mean, I'm just starting off as essentially a creator, but I've talked to people in my booth who maybe they talk too long, or they're but they're a fan, and I feel like I owe a certain amount of patience, and I at least need to, I at least, if someone says you should do this, and I might go, Jesus, this is a fucking stupid idea. Like, why would I do that? It would ruin the whole series. I just smile and I nod and I say, okay, I'll take that into consideration. Or if they genuinely want a discussion, I might say, okay, well, this is why we're not doing that. But I never. It's not like, oh well, write that asshole off. They've enjoyed what you've created, even if they want to take it a bad direction. They've consumed something. you know, there's you have a connection, whether you like it or not, and in some ways, you being the person in power, you have a certain amount of responsibility to that person. Um, I'm not saying you owe them things, but you do. You should have a certain amount of respect for the thing you created, to not curb stomp the fans of it, um, because you don't like them for some other reason. I'm not saying put up with harassment or threats and like people like that jackass imposter who keeps popping up. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I think we can be a little nicer to each other. I think I think the election bullshit. You're not you're alienating more people than you're convincing to your side, and I know this because I'm friends with people who are lefties, and they're just like, I just want to talk anime, and I want to draw pretty girls, and I want to do this stuff. Like what is this politics bullshit? Because it's consumed a lot of their lives, a lot of a lot of actors, a lot of writers' lives. It's consumed it. Now I'm a pundit. I kind of walk that line, but if you look at my official account, no politics. Period. Our raw blank account. I don't. It's not about that. It is about the product. It is about the fans. That's what it's about. And that there's a line there. Nope. I mean, I do analyst on my own. I mean, that's just because I've kind of fallen into multiple things at once. And even I question. I go, you know what? Maybe I should just walk away from the analysis. Because I really want to make sure that the people who can enjoy what I create know that I am internally grateful for people who enjoy it and consume it and buy it and support it. That transcends any kind of tribalistic political feelings I could have. And it's hard to articulate that kind of thankfulness, even if you feel that way. And I'm assuming most actors probably do feel this way. That's not as easy to articulate as, this political story popped up and this pissed me off. It's not as easy to articulate. So just keep that in mind as you move forward. The bigger you get, the harder it becomes to not essentially hurt people who you don't want to hurt. I'm gonna have to cross that road at some point. I mean, some people can do it, like a Scott Adams, but Scott Adams is, he became an outspoken analyst after the fact because he was tired of the culture shift. But you think that him doing what he was doing would have necessarily helped him advance with Dilbert or something? I'm not so sure it would, and I'm starting to question myself a lot. But I think we can get along. I think we can love the product. I think we can love the performances, and we can love the characters, and we can all play for the same team, and not have to bring in identity politics and poison, and nonsense, and just politics in general. And for God's sake, it's Japanese animation. They don't know. They don't care. They're like, are they really fighting over that? But like, I want them to like the thing I made. Think of those guys, right? They made something, and now there's just try to be the best ambassador you can, and try to just please be charitable. I want, you don't got to be best friends with everybody, but we genuinely like anime. We genuinely like your performances. And it would be really nice if we could genuinely like you because we don't get the sense that you genuinely don't like us. It makes it hard. We go in starry-eyed liking these people, and then we follow them on Twitter, and we're like, oh God, like you get like a Tara Strong, where it's like, Jesus Christ, like she's out of her mind, and just really hateful. And DC Douglas was a good example. Excellent actor, very good performances. Started doing Media Matters stuff, and he started like saying really, really nasty things to I guess people on the right. Like I don't know. It got personal. It got mean. And a lot of people just were like, all right, we're just gonna write that off. And then there's been drama, and he's been called out for stuff. But it's like, I'd rather not even deal with that or care about that. I really I don't care that much. But it's like, he does genuinely hate me because of who I am over political stuff, even though I genuinely wanted to support this guy for the art he was creating. Let's tone it down a little bit. That would be nice. I don't know. It's been almost an hour 47 minutes, and I got that off my chest. And I don't want to see the industry fail. I really don't want to see the industry fail. And the path it's going right now, between basically these streaming companies putting the squeeze, and their simuldub rushing, and the identity politics creeping in, it's going to take a nosedive. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. Even people who don't identify these as the core problems don't want to see the industry take a nosedive. So, that's my piece. I love you all. I don't hate you. Some people know what I'm talking about. That I freaking last real performance I saw him. First of all, he's in one of my favorite shows. Second of all, last performance I saw him, he absolutely stood on his head, and I wanted to compliment him, and I will in person. I'll just have to, I just hope he doesn't know who I am. So, or I don't know, maybe he'll see this, and maybe he'll have a complete change of heart. But here's the olive branch. Here's the concern. That we don't mind having a discussion, but please see where we're coming from. And I'm mostly speaking for myself here, but I do feel there's a lot of, and I've run into these people, a lot of really jaded fans, and a lot of it's tied into this election politics BS that really it ramped up back in 2016, and it's really only gotten worse. And I think some of that is the social media echo chambers, but let's not have politics torpedo this basically the dubbing industry, because the Japanese are going to keep making what Japanese are going to make, but in terms of like dubs might disappear. Dubs didn't always exist, or at the very least dubs of like not nearly as many things got dubbed as they are now. We're blessed to have the technology and the talent to do what we're doing. Let's not squander it. I'm not saying push back against Netflix, push back against all these places that are basically taking advantage and mistreating actors and hurting the industry in general. Go ahead, fight that fight. You guys, actually, people in the industry are going to know more about how to fix that than somebody looking from the outside. But the bread and butter is the fan base, and the fan base doesn't care what team you play for until you tell them that you care what team they play for. And because the only The only thing that should matter is that we like, you know, we like anime dubs, and other things are creeping into it, particularly the identity politics, and that's gonna kill it. That's gonna kill it. We don't want to see it die. So that's my pleading.